Greetings and good Tuesday morning, the 19th of April. It's been a month since my mom passed away. Haven't really talked to my sisters much. Hopefully they're doing all right. And I know it's been a while since I've been on here. And if I can explain as quickly as possible, I first and foremost, I wouldn't say some things have happened. I'll get to that in a minute. But also, last week, my kids and subsequently my wife were on spring break, which basically means I had a lack of privacy. Now, I'm getting dangerously close to renovating an area of the home, which will eventually not just become my workshop, but, fingers crossed, my cosplay workshop, but also my studio where, regardless of whether anybody's home, regardless of whether I have the utmost privacy or not, it'll be an isolated location where I can make these videos, because at some point the kids are going to finish up school and they'll be on summer vacation, and my wife, who's a sub, will be on summer vacation with them, and I don't want to necessarily take a 3-month hiatus. The other thing that happened was my new friend Sheila not only found the motivation but the courage to make her own videos. And whether that has anything to do with her and I miscommunicating, misunderstanding each other, any variation of, I'm terribly glad that she found the motivation and the courage to express herself and make her own videos, and hopefully she found them as cathartic as I do. But I'm also interested to know, Sheila, if you equally had a difficult time with like the first draft or the second draft. Like, did you have to rewatch your videos? And if you're anything like me, it's horrific. It's egocentric, it's narcissistic, it's everything I'm not really in a person, and I really cannot stand watching my own videos. But sometimes you have to find out whether or not you were coherent. Did you spiral, whatever the case may be. So I'm very interested to know, how many times did you have to make your video before you're like, okay, that's a good take, I'm going to publish that. But that being said, first things I want to do is Krishna, hopefully I'm saying that right, Krishna, had responded to a couple of my videos. Now, Krishna, I don't know if you found me because of Sheila or found Sheila because of me, but whatever the case, let me get right into that. So first thing, Krishna responded to the video where we're talking about Joss Whedon. So I'm a Joss Whedon fan, or was. Giving your channel and some of your videos a chance because I've been a fan of Sheila for a while. Okay, so I'm guessing you found me through Sheila. Back before some of her old videos got taken down, but they were always really fun to listen to. I can tell you two have really different styles and personalities, but it's interesting to watch you two talk. Daniel, bro, you seem very committed to certain types of ways of seeing the world where things have to fit into categories in some ways, but at the same time, not really very committed to them at all. I mean, I get it. As a fan, I was pretty let down by Joss. In a lot of ways, as a dude who grew up a bit closer to Joss's age, I think there were times when I wrestled even with some of the toxic ideas that he had. But I feel like I've been more lucky to have some great relationships with women, and I don't find friend to be a 4-letter word either. Is this really happening? Are you getting involved? I know. It is interesting that no matter how long you guys talked, it seemed like you kept getting to the edge of realizing that Joss Raven didn't have any excuses for his behavior, so I didn't fully understand the commitment to defending him no matter what. But the irony of then, in the opposite, believing all of the almost 20 people who at least mentioned him being problematic had some sort of nefarious agenda. It seems like that would take a lot of conspiracy for a lot of people who really hardly know each other and have a lot more to lose, mostly, but not really for a lot of gain, and many of them with perhaps an awful lot to lose if Buffy or other Whedon fans are their primary source. I'm guessing you're talking about the cons where they make money off of going to conventions. I understand other debates to be had, like, so then what? And I found that more interesting when you talked about that stuff. And I wish there had been more time to talk about that, because that is what seemed like if there had been more time, it might have been more interesting discussion. But it seemed almost forced to play devil's advocate on the side of Josh on this one. I guess that's just something I'm curious about. Do you really think that he's being set up by all the JL, Buffy Angel people, the staff and writers, as well as famous actors, and also a conspiracy for people who don't even affiliate with Snyder? Or is it that just an argument for argument's sake? I don't think we have to buy into everything that people do. Sometimes it's healthy just to sigh and let it go, in my opinion. I just had to, especially when that Vulture thing came out. But honestly, even before that, that was just the nail in the coffin. I'll always love his shows, but man, I really loved a lot of those actors and actresses, especially. It makes me pissed for them that it went on for so long. Also, just speaking as a man who grew up in those decades, I know a lot of really bad behavior happened. Krishna, yeah, for the most part, I was attempting to be the devil's advocate. I was attempting to argue on behalf of Josh just for that purpose, so that I was pro-Josh and Sheila was anti-Josh. Based on some of the interviews I've seen him do in previous panels before all of this ever happened, I could tell that from a socio-political perspective, I probably wouldn't agree with Josh on much. As far as my compartmentalization, yeah, to a certain degree, you're not wrong there. I think at the end of the day, I do like to put things into certain categories, if at all possible. My biggest thing, my biggest point of contention was, I felt at the time as though there was this media-driven narrative that Josh was a really bad person and that we're being forced to believe this narrative. And part of the reason, as in one of a handful of reasons I started my channel, was my lack of trust in media, whether it's legacy media, social media, internet-based media, whatever form of media you want to discuss. That at the end of the day, there is an agenda that's being driven, because this all goes back to the First Amendment. All right, since we have freedom of the press, freedom of speech, nothing is supposed to be governmentally controlled, which means private entities are supposed to be able to freely express themselves however they want, which means if the private entity also has a socio-political agenda, then they're allowed to basically push that socio-political agenda up to and including framing a narrative that supports their ultimate conclusion. I did a report on this for college, and what I was questioning was whether or not there was implicit bias, whether there was a narrative being driven against a beloved content creator, and whether or not there was nuance. And in some of the follow-on comments and so on and so forth for Sheila's channel, for people that are fans of Sheila, who are big fans of the concept of nuance, I was arguing on the side of nuance as well, as like, well, is it really just this? Because let's not forget, at some of these times where Josh is being accused of being bad and toxic, he was attempting to get Firefly off and running. So just to kind of give you some perspective here, Buffy got turned into a series. And the series was supposed to be more reflective of the direction he wanted it to go, where why does the hot chick have to be a defenseless bimbo? Why can't the hot chick be strong and fierce and be able to defend herself and be a source of strength? And that wasn't really what he wanted. That wasn't really what was reflected in the movie starring Christy Swanson. So he got a greater opportunity to tell that story in Buffy. And then one of the characters who created Angel became a spin-off. I was actually a bigger fan of Angel at the time. I wasn't really into Buffy. I purposely watched Buffy recently with my wife, and we did enjoy it. But at the same time, I think what we were enjoying mostly was the nostalgia. Where at the time it was out, I don't know if I was in the mindset to watch something that was based in teenage, storytelling. I'm probably butchering what I'm trying to say here, but it started with Buffy in high school. And at that point in my life, 97, I would have been 21. It just wasn't where I was at. I wasn't in that mood. When I did finally get exposed to Angel, I really enjoyed Angel. I found Angel to be more of an adult-oriented content, not sexually, just the story. I really latched on to Angel. And then when I discovered Firefly through watching Serenity, the backstory on that, Krishna, I was a big fan of Nathan Fillion from Two Guys, a Girl, and a Pizza Place. I was aware of this movie, Serenity. I had just finished a patrol in Ramadi. I came back and somebody had the disc, and I borrowed it. I watched the movie. I thought it was great. And then I watched the special features, and that's how I found out about Firefly. So, putting that all into summation, right? So, at the same time, Josh had Buffy going, he had Angel going, and he was trying really hard to get Firefly going. And Firefly was an uphill battle. And then, in a very short amount of time, so Firefly basically got canceled 2002, 2003. Buffy ended in 2003, and Angel didn't get renewed, so Angel ended in 2004. So I can imagine, depending on his income and depending on his stature and what was going on, there could have been a lot of stressors going on. And I know for a fact, and allow me to make this point, part of the reason I took a break from making these videos wasn't just the lack of privacy, but also if I'm emotional, whether I'm positive emotional or negative emotional, there's an overwhelming tendency to impose bias, in which case I'm not as close to center, I'm not as neutral as possible. So when it comes to nuance, I was attempting to argue, whether I did a good job or not, I was attempting to argue that there could have been mitigating circumstances that, perhaps with Buffy, not Buffy having to end, Angel having to end, Firefly getting canceled, that there could have been a lot of stressors going on where Josh didn't handle things correctly. And the only example I can give you is this. When I was in the military, I would oftentimes have a full plate of shit that I got to get to. And it's beyond obvious that I am like totally immersed in whatever it is I got to do. And one of my younger service members would come to me with something that's very near and dear and personal to them at an extremely inconvenient time. And I am horrific at multitasking. And it finally got to the point where I realized what I was doing. And I was like, hey, I want to be honest with you. You do not have my undivided attention. I am completely immersed with this other issue that is way more time sensitive. And quite frankly, I'm probably not going to give you the time, dedication, and attention that this topic deserves. So could we try to revisit this another time? I'm very proud of myself for making that realization, only because I'd made previous mistakes where I was attempting to multitask. I was dealing with the most important task at hand, and I kind of blew off something else, and it backfired. So I was attempting to argue that, is it really what it is? Is Josh really this monster where consciously he was aware of what he was doing, or was he just acting emotionally? And that's all I was attempting to do, was at least be his advocate in a world where it seemed like everybody was attempting to pile on. At the end of the day, it very well could just be what it is. He knew what he was doing. He was a self-centered prick. He was a monster. He was a womanizer. It could have been all those things. At which point, I'm not really defending anything other than, going back to the question, can we still enjoy the content? And I think, yeah. Because it's not just Josh who created the content, it's the people that brought it to life. I really enjoyed David Boreanaz as Angel and everybody else that supported him on the cast. J. August Richards, Alexis Denisoff, Charisma Carpenter, Gina Torres in her special appearance, Vincent Kartheiser. So many people that brought that to life. And then, of course, Firefly, big fan of Firefly. So, at the end of the day, I was really just trying to be his advocate for the sake of being his advocate, where he still could have just been a douchebag. all things are entirely possible. The one argument I tried to make where it all depends on how people receive information is I wasn't there, and pretty much even Sheila wasn't there, and perhaps even you weren't there. So when you're not physically there to witness it as a neutral third party, or if you're close to my age, then you'll get this concept, the fly on the wall, because only the fly on the wall who has no interest in either or is the one who has a neutral opinion. They see his side, they see her side, and they know what's in between. And that was the other argument I was attempting to make, is like, well, are these people attempting to create brand recognition by jumping on, a trend? And I think that's a viable question. I think we're allowed to ask questions, because I think somebody had commented on my channel as in like, how dare you, how dare you ask questions? Like, well, why can't we ask questions? What the hell? So hopefully that explains some more. And Krishna, if you want to continue to unwrap that, please by all means continue to leave comments and get involved, because you have one more comment that I have to get to. And then of course, you responded to our Zoom call about COVID. This was a really great discussion. It put such a human face on different perspectives, but it was really cool the way you both discussed it. I don't know what the answers are. I just know we keep doing it wrong, and I think we're letting politics and greed rather than science and what's best for society help make our decisions. And Krishna, that's pretty much my point in general, is I think at such a pivotal time when we had the election season coming up in 2020, I think unlike other viruses like the H1N1, the bird flu, I think H1N1 was swine flu, whatever the case may be, where they were potentially played down. And again, I'm not a virologist, so I don't want to claim some high ground of all-knowing wisdom. But I think the COVID thing was hyper politicized. I think we were fed information from either conservative or liberal sources, where liberal sources want us to panic, conservative sources don't want us to panic, and it's like, well, what's the real? What's the truth in between? What is the right level of measures to take? Are there certain people that should panic? Are there others who shouldn't? And for my limited understanding is COVID is influenza. So this is a different form of influenza that we were not exposed to. So therefore, we didn't exactly have a lot of data, which means without having a tremendous amount of data, how can we make the most informed scientific decisions? And one of the things I really despised about Fauci, in my personal opinion, is he seemed very liberal oriented. He seemed very liberal news source favored. And in my opinion, he spoke in definitives versus, I don't know. We're going to have to wait and play this thing out. But, that's also potentially my bias. That's also potentially how I perceive things. I don't know. But yeah, I think it was a great discussion, and I'd like to have more of those with Miss Sheila. And, God willing, maybe you'll continue to give my channel a chance. I'm not saying you're going to agree with everything. I'm not saying you're going to fall in love with me or my topics. But what I'm trying to achieve is reaching out to other people and showing that we don't have to let other sources like media sources determine what we think and how we feel and how we treat others, that we can communicate with one another and get to know each other as real people and formulate our own opinions. And that's going to be a large part of my next follow-up video. So Krishna, thank you so much for getting involved. Miss Sheila, once again, thank you for staying involved. Stace, I'll try to make some more content if you enjoy my content, or if it at least stimulates your ability to get involved in something. So with that being said, I'm going to close this out. Everybody who got involved, everybody who comments, everybody who gives me more stuff to talk about, who gets involved in the conversation and refuses to demonize and dehumanize each other, you're awesome.